All right. So, I mean, there's only about 6 of you in here, but we'll go ahead and get started. We're doing Module 9, Lesson 6, Day 1. Hi, Heidi. All right. So, quick review. Module 9, Lesson 5 was due yesterday. We did the course arc in class. We did the notebook in class. We reviewed and went over the review sheet in class. If you need assistance on any of these, see the live session playback for weeks 10 and 11. They're all labeled. Hi, Analia. So you can go back and look at those. Okay. All right. So we are going to evaluate the impact of unequal distribution of resources, analyze the concepts of specialization and comparative advantage to explain why nations trade. So if you can make everything, why do you trade with others? Kind of that idea. Summarize the position of the United States in world trade and describe the effects of trade on employment. Hi, Juliana. Hi, Magdalene. All right. So our warm up is yesterday was Twitter Day. Who is your favorite person to follow on Twitter, or who do you find most entertaining? You guys can either unmute or you can type it in the chat. Hi, Aiden. And I guess I should also ask, right? Do you guys use Twitter? Kylie, you don't. Aiden, you do. Who do you follow on Twitter? Jackie, you don't. Okay. NFL Network. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Hi, Jamie Lett. Aiden, who do you follow? Hello, Sadie. So I do not have a Twitter account, mainly because there's no way for me to make it private. And as a teacher, I do not subscribe to any kind of crossover between me being a teacher and my students having access to that. I just think that's not a good idea. I have friends who have Twitter, so of course they keep me up to date. Hi, Franchon. I do know, hi, Ipu, if any of you guys do follow Twitter or were paying attention to the news, like the thing with the SVG bank or SVB bank, and it failing over spring break, that was huge on Twitter, right? I don't know. I'm just waiting to see if anybody else was going to type anything in the chat. Okay, so the games you play that have Twitter accounts. Okay. Another one of my students said that they follow like shows that they watch that have accounts that way. So nobody else has a Twitter account or follows any particular people on Twitter? Or most of you guys in the I don't really have a Twitter account kind of section? No response? Okay. Well, I guess then we'll move on. All right, so historically, there was very little specialization before the Industrial Revolution. There was a much poorer quality of life before this. So we are going to actually do a Nearpod on trade and specialization. Let me get that open. Let me get the link for you. Okay, I'm going to put the link in the chat. There's the link for the Nearpod that we are going to do. All right, so we'll give everybody a chance to hop in here. And we're going to do this Nearpod on specialization and trade. So I'll give everybody a chance to get in here. The link is in the chat. And we'll kind of go from there. Okay, I see one person in. Okay, I see four. Four people are in. 5. Yay. I need like 15. 6. Okay, I need some more of you in here. Okay, I see 8. For the rest of you guys working your way into it, having just a slow connection. I'm waiting. 9. Can we get at least one more of you in here? Come on, guys. No more? None of the rest of you guys are hopping in here? Where are we at? All right, I have Aiden, Franchon, Isaiah, Jackie, Jamie Lett, Kylie, Magdalene, Emiko, and William. Where are the rest of you? There's only 9 of you in here, and there are 15 of you in the meet. Where are the rest of you guys? Gabriel? Where aren't you in there? There we go. There's 10. Analia, I didn't see you in there. Are you going to hop in there? Ipu, I didn't see you in there. Juliana, I didn't see you. Sadie, where are you? I don't see you in there. Come on, guys. This is part of, you get out of class what you put into it. You need to participate. That's part of how you are successful, is participating in this. Helps you guys retain more of the information, which then helps you do better on your summatives, right? All right. I am going to start playing this again. I will mute until the questions come up, okay?
Hi, I'm Adrienne Hill.
And I'm Mr. Clifford, and welcome to Crash Course Economics.
Here at Crash Course, we recognize that difficult subjects are sometimes taught with truly unintelligible vocabulary that's difficult for us regular people to understand.
But it doesn't have to be that complicated. Remember, economics is the study of scarcity and choices. We have limited resources, so we need a way to analyze the best way to use them. We need economics to make wise decisions in the future, but it also helps us understand the past.
Most empires, wars, and human endeavors can be explained using economics. All you have to understand is who wanted what. The American Civil War wasn't just about freedom. It was fought because southern states wanted to keep using cheap slave labor. It was economics.
Econ can explain so much about the world, and that's why we love teaching it. And that's what makes it the greatest subject of all time.
Take that, physics. We're coming for you.
All right, so the first question is, what do you already know about specialization and trade? Anything. Anything about specialization, anything about trade. It's just, like, what do you think you know? Where do you think we're at, etc. That's what it's asking. And so this is where you're typing it in, and anything at all. Okay. Money. Yes, money is a very important factor in trade, right? Okay, Magdalene, you don't think you know a lot, but is there anything that you think you might know? Oh, okay. So trade something for something that you need. So maybe you have extra of A and you need C. So maybe you trade for that. That's good. I need some more answers, guys. Come on. Okay, let's see. Oh, there you go, Gabriel. Yeah, when you focus on being an expert on a certain trade or an area, right? Very good. Definitely you're building relationships, you're exchanging goods and services. Good. When you buy or sell goods or services, good. Changing goods or services one for the other. Okay, so I'm waiting for Fran Sean and Analia and Aiden and Jamie Lett. I need you guys to get your answers in there for me, please. All right, let's see. Okay, well, I need the rest of you guys to get something else in when a nation focus. Oh, on its labor. There you go. Very good, Franchon. Very good. See, you guys know more than you realized you knew, right? You saw that and you're like, I don't know anything. And yet you knew a lot more than you thought you did. Good. Very good. All right. I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to start the video again.
Oh, yeah. Let's stick with this history theme and talk about the progress of humanity throughout the ages. Using measurements like life expectancy, child mortality, and income per capita, we can show the majority of humans that ever lived had terrible lives. Statistically speaking, it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that people saw a significant and sustained increase in their standard of living. Population skyrocketed, but so did life expectancy and food supplies and hospitals and eventually toilets and refrigerators.
It was in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution that Adam Smith, the first modern economist, wrote his book, An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, or Antikuntunkawan. He wasn't great at naming books, but he was really good at explaining the source of prosperity. Smith concluded that it was specialization, what he called the division of labor, that made countries wealthy. Let's go to the thought bubble.
When I think of specialization, I think of a pizza restaurant where different workers have specific tasks like preparing the ingredients, making the pizza, putting it in the oven, taking it out, and putting it in the box. This division of labor makes each worker more productive since they can each focus on the thing they do best. And they don't waste time switching between jobs. But specialization goes beyond the assembly line for pizza. To produce the cheese, there was a dairy farmer who specialized in raising cows. The oven was designed and manufactured by people who specialize in engineering ovens. The friendly mustache guy on the pizza box, someone had to stamp him on there. I love that guy. Adam Smith observed, in every improved society, the farmer is generally nothing but a farmer. The manufacturer, nothing but a manufacturer. The labor necessary to produce any one complete manufacture is almost always divided among a great number of hands.
All right, guys, how would you explain the division of labor in your own words? They kind of just explained it a little bit. How would you explain it? Sorry. What do you think division of labor is? Hopefully you guys are typing. That's why we're not seeing a whole lot. Okay. We've got some answers. Let's see. Division of work process into several tasks, each of which is carried out by a different individual or a group of people. Good, Analia. Mika, when the production is split into different parts, when labor is separated into groups and then done by specialized workers. Separating works or tasks either into groups or individually. Multiple tasks done by multiple people. Tasks that people do. Groups who done by specialized workers, in which people have their own individual tasks to complete, and then all of them would then come together to maybe make the whole. Good. I'm seeing some good answers. Hopefully, Franchon and Aiden and Heidi and Ipu and Jackie and Jamie Lett are writing their responses right now. It's just taking them a moment. I do need to see some more answers. Multiple tasks in which each task is performed by a different person. Good. That is definitely good. Hopefully Aiden and Heidi and Ipu and Jamie Lett are still writing. Come on, guys, I need some more answers. Groups done by specialized workers, split into different parts. different tasks done by multiple people to accomplish a goal. Okay. The separation of work. Okay, there's a few of you that I'm missing, but I want to move on with this. So I need you guys to finish up as we're going through. But good, those are some really good answers.
Imagine what it would be like to make a pizza completely on your own, from scratch. You would have to grow the wheat and tomatoes and raise the cow. You would make the flour, the cheese, the oven, the pan, and then draw the mustache guy on the box. Without specialization, if you want something, you have to make it yourself. And for thousands of years of human history, specialization was, well, pretty minimal. Of course, humans specialized prior to the Industrial Revolution. It's one of the marks of civilization that we mentioned in our World History series. But the modern era has taken this to the extreme. Think of how many people from how many different specialized fields it takes to make a smartphone. All of them working in harmony so I can tweet my super profound thoughts. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So specialization makes people more productive, but Adam Smith said that it's trade that makes them better off. Assume that John can produce either pizza or t-shirts. If he's way better at producing pizza, then he should specialize in making pizza and then trade with someone else like Hank, who's way better at making t-shirts. Everyone knows Hank's better at making t-shirts, right? With trade, each of them can end up with more pizza and shirts than if they tried to make them on their own.
All right, so division of labor makes an economy A, less reliant on labor, B, less efficient, C, more reliant on the government, or D, more productive. Which one? I'm waiting. We're getting close. We're still at 38% haven't answered, so I need some responses. So we're looking at A, less reliant on labor, B, less efficient, C, more reliant on the government, or D, more productive. I'll give you guys a hint. 77% of the answers are correct, 15% are not. So got 7.7%. So I think that's like 2 people haven't responded yet. But the answer is it makes you more productive, right? Because you get really good and really fast at doing what you are working on. And if each person along the way, think of this as the assembly line, right? If each person is really great and really fast at what they're doing, how much faster does it go as it goes down the line? It's kind of the idea behind it, right? Okay.
Their own. To fully explain this idea of the benefits of trade, we need to show you an economic model. But before we go any further, know that economists geek out over models and graphs. Don't get all worked up about the numbers. They're not that complicated. Models are just visuals to help us simplify and explain concepts. It's time for the model. So let's go to the runway.
Now, this is the first graph you'll see in an economics textbook. It's called the Production Possibilities Frontier, or PPF. The PPF shows the different combinations of 2 goods being produced using all resources efficiently. Now, here's a made-up example. If the United States uses all of its workers and factories to produce airplanes, it can produce 500 per day, but it can't produce any shoes. Now, if they use all their resources to produce shoes, they can produce 1,000 tons per day, but they can't produce any planes. Now, because the United States has limited resources, they can't produce any combination beyond the Production Possibilities Frontier. So it's impossible to produce 500 planes and 1,000 tons of shoes.
Wait, Mr. Clifford, I want to stop you here for a second. We don't live in a world where there are only 2 things that a country can produce. There are like a million things that U.S. workers can choose to make. Toilet paper, zippers, adorable stuff, kitty cats holding heart, artisanal sauerkraut. We don't live in a world of just shoes and airplanes. So what's the real world value of the Production Possibilities Frontier?
The idea is once you really understand that there's trade-offs between producing 2 goods, that same logic applies to any number of goods. And adding additional goods makes it more complex, but doesn't really add any more insights. So economists usually stick with just 2 goods. Now, what if American companies mismanage their resources and tried to produce planes in shoe factories and shoes in plane factories? Well, they'd be at a point inside the production possibilities frontier showing an inefficient use of resources. So every possible combination inside the curve is inefficient, and on the curve is efficient, and outside the curve is impossible.
All right, so which of the following concepts does the production possibility frontier, the PPF, graph illustrate? With the right process, you can produce outside the curve. When producing multiple goods, there will always be trade-offs. Countries should avoid producing more than 2 goods at a time. Production efficiency has nothing to do with quantity of goods. I'm seeing a lot of people really listen to what they were talking about. And that production possibilities curve that we were looking at there, we talked about that at the end of last quarter. We looked at those, right? The trade-offs. So everybody seems to be on the right one, right? When producing multiple goods, there will always be trade-offs. Good. Okay.
Possible. Now let's compare this PPF to China's. China can produce 100 planes per day or 800 tons of shoes. Since the United States can produce more planes than China, they have an absolute advantage in the production of planes. The US also has an absolute advantage in the production of shoes. Since the US can produce more of both goods, you might think there's no reason to trade, that they should just produce both on their own. Well, no, remember, specialization in trade makes people, and in this case countries, better off. Now stick with me. Let's calculate the opportunity cost for the United States to produce 1 plane. Every single time they produce an additional plane, it costs them 2 tons of shoes. China, on the other hand, gives up 8 tons of shoes for each plane they produce. And since the US has a lower opportunity cost, they have what's called a comparative advantage. China has a comparative advantage in the production of shoes. But here's the best part. If the US specializes in planes, they can import shoes from China at a lower opportunity cost than if they produce shoes themselves. For example, if these 2 countries make a deal to trade 1 plane for 4 tons of shoes, the US would be better off. They would rather get 4 tons of shoes per plane from China than only get 2 tons of shoes per plane by making shoes on their own. Now, China is also better off. They would rather trade 4 tons of shoes for a plane than give up 8 tons of shoes for producing a plane on their own. Now, hopefully your head isn't spinning. Being able to do these calculations is good, but it's more important to understand the main idea. Individuals and countries should specialize in producing things in which they have a comparative advantage, and then trade with other countries that specialize in something else. This trade is mutually beneficial. Now, that's the production possibilities frontier. In the real world, it's way more complicated than the simplified model, and we're only in the beginning.
So this graph is super simplified, but the idea that countries should focus on producing the products for which they are better suited is huge. Way huge. In reality, the US is the world's leading manufacturer and exporter of airplanes. It produces more than 40% of all planes. At the same time, the US produces less than 2% of the world's shoes, electing instead to import them from countries in Asia. The graphs aren't real, but the concepts.
All right, a lower blank means greater comparative advantage. So a lower opportunity cost means greater comparative advantage. A lower mutual benefit means a greater comparative advantage. Lower orders means greater comparative advantage, or lower factors of production means a greater advantage, comparative advantage. So I'm seeing you guys are figuring this out, right? When they were talking about the shoes versus the airplanes, right? There we go. A couple more kiddos need to answer, please. There's still quite a few of you that haven't answered yet. Okay, I should say like 3, 4 of you. All right. So you're right. Lower opportunity cost means greater comparative advantage. Remember that, because we're going to see that chart in our course arc and our notebook, right?
Steps are. Another reason you should learn this is because you might hear a politician or someone on the news argue that international trade destroys domestic jobs. And even though it may seem counterintuitive, economists for centuries have argued that trade is mutually beneficial to whoever's trading. Now you know why. Now, to be fair, there are all sorts of other intolerable issues associated with international trade, like child labor, dangerous working conditions, and pollution. And we promise to address these in a future video. But if there's one point on which most economists agree, it's that specialization in trade makes the world better off. No country in recent decades has achieved sustained improvements in living standards without open trade with the rest of the world. Countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and Iran that are voluntarily or involuntarily cut off from the world remain less economically developed than they could be. On the other hand, countries that have opened their doors to trade, like Japan and Taiwan, or more recently China and India, have seen massive improvements in their standards of living.
Adam Smith was onto something. Self-sufficiency is inefficiency, and inefficiency can lead to poverty.
Next time, we'll show you how some of these ideas get turned into economic systems and how these systems contribute to the differences between countries. Thanks so much for watching.
All right, so what is one question that you still have about specialization and trade? Anybody? Anything that you still want to know about? None? None so far? Okay. Are you feeling like we're going to get to it so it'll be okay? A lot of no answers. I just need something, guys. Something, anything. And I think that's the last of the video. Let me just make sure.
See you next week. Crash Course is made with the help of all these nice people who've
All right, so that is the end of our Nearpod. Hopefully you guys were actually paying attention and working with this. All right, so here's what I need you guys to do is open up your Canvas and open up your Module 9 Lesson 6 course arc and notebook, please. And then if you guys can give me the thumbs up reaction emoji or whatever to let me know that you have those open, that would be great. So I got one. Okay, so we're looking at like 3 or 4. Okay, I see some more. All right, we're going to get started on this. Okay, so remember, guys, I cannot do as much reading, not with this respiratory infection and throat thing I've got going on, but I'll do my best, okay? All right, so we're in our course arc, Module 9, Lesson 6. In the introduction, we have our essential question. Remember, this is literally a Control-C copy. And then Control-V paste right there into the essential question. So question number 1 should be done, right? Here, I will even put the essential question in. Oops, I did the wrong thing there. Sorry. It still had my other one on there. Let's see, Control-C. Here we go. Control-V. There we go. There's our essential question. Okay, so everybody got that? Awesome. All right. So the next item up on here is our vocabulary. Let me go to the vocabulary. All right, so we have import, that's, oops, import, right? Let me go back. Import, good or service brought in to a country from another country. Well, I'm glad you're back, Aiden. Comparative advantage, the ability to produce a product most efficiently given all the other products that could be produced. So again, that would be the planes versus the shoes, like they showed in the Nearpod. Interdependence, a shared need of countries for resources, goods, services, labor, and knowledge supplied by other countries. Think of this as like globalization, right? Absolute advantage, the ability to produce more of a given product given a given amount of resources. China can produce more shoes, we can produce more planes, okay? Export, if import is bringing in a good or service sent to another country, so the goods that are exiting our country. Law of comparative advantage, principle that a nation is better off when it produces goods and services for which it has a comparative advantage, making the most of what you have and utilizing those to the best of your ability instead of trying to produce things that you really don't have the goods or resources for. All right. All right, so if you guys can give me a principle that a nation is better off, which one is that? I need you guys to give me the answer for that. What do we mean? Nation is better off when it produces goods and services for which it has a comparative advantage. What is the correct word here, guys? Is it comparative advantage, absolute advantage, law of comparative advantage, interdependence, or import? Law of comparative advantage. Thank you, Kylie. Ability to produce more of a given product using a given amount of resources. Absolute, good. A good or service brought in from another country. Import, good. Ability to produce a product most efficiently, given all the other products that could be produced. Comparative. And then interdependence, good. Does everybody have this done? All right, so let's go and look at our notebook. So the vocabulary, we have the law of comparative advantage and then our definition that it asks for. I'm going to put these each into the chat for you. We have our absolute advantage. Okay. Import. Okay. Comparative advantage. Okay. And then our final and fifth word is interdependence. Now these in the rubric are the same, right? You have to have all 5 words. I'd have our words and then the actual definition. So those are done. As always, like our rubrics stay the same when it comes to like your essential question and your vocabulary. So that has not changed. Okay, those are always the same. Where we start seeing the changes is when we get to question number 3, 1 full paragraph using claims. So the next question needs to have a full paragraph. Question number 4, 1 full paragraph again. Question number 5, 1 full paragraph. So let's get through those ones next, which is resource distribution and specialization is the next one we go to. So let's go to our course arc. Why nations trade. So basically, there's reasons why they trade, right? You, as a nation, you are not going to have all the resources and all the factors of production to create, make, and distribute every single thing that the people in your country need. Number one, you're not going to have it. And number two, it's just not, you're just not going to make it. It's just not going to happen. You're going to be better at some things. You're going to have more resources towards some things than others. So the smart thing to do is then trade with the countries. You have abundant supplies of A through M. So you make all the things that you need for A through M because you've got the technology, you have the resources, you have the people. Another country may have everything for N through Z, and I'm making this very simple, but they have everything they need, the resources, the technology, the people. We trade products A through M for products N through Z from the other country and vice versa, right? We can make and produce A through M. They can make and produce N through Z. It's just smarter to trade, right? So we talked about like natural resources, right? They're different, right? They determine what goods and services an economy can produce. If you don't have fertile soil or you don't have good climates, you're not going to be producing foodstuffs, right? Much of Southwest Asia with very scarce farmland and water, but large reserves of oil and natural gas, their economies are based on extracting and selling these energy resources, whereas we have really good areas for agriculture, so we trade, right? Capital and labor also shape a region's economy. Physical capital includes the things that people make in order to produce their final goods and services. Human capital is different than the labor. It refers to the size of a nation's, or labor is the size of their workforce. Human capital is the knowledge and skills a worker gains through education and experience. Every job requires human capital, okay? So looking at resource distribution. So we're looking at India versus Nigeria versus Peru versus United States. This is land size. Arable land is land that is able to be farmed. 47.9% of India has arable land. 39% of Nigeria has arable land. 2.8% of Peru does. 16.3% of the United States has arable land. Then you look at all the things that the natural resources that they have, right? Look at the population, the labor force. I mean, we only have 155 million. India has 486 million, right? Literacy rate. There you go. Human capital, right? 62.8, 61, 89, 99. Telephones, main versus cellular. And then how many airports, right? So different resources spread out in different areas. So based on the chart, which resource is Peru lacking compared to the other countries? If you look at this, what do they seem to have the lesser amount? Which seems to be the least amount? Arable land, right? 2.8%. There you go. Which resources does India lack in comparison with the US? So let's see, we can look at arable land, natural resources, literate citizens, and labor force. Arable land, they actually have more than us. Literacy rate is definitely lower, much larger labor force. Natural resources, they've got a lot of natural resources. So which one, guys? Think human capital. Anybody? Come on, guys, I need you to give me an answer. Their labor force is larger. Literate citizens is less. Natural resources are about the same. Their arable land is larger. It's not the labor force. It's actually the literate citizens. Labor force is larger than ours. Arable land is larger than ours. They've got roughly the same amount of natural resources. What they have less than is literate citizens. Their literacy rate, the ability to read and write, is only 63%, whereas ours is 99%. So it's the human capital, right? All right, unequal resource distribution. The availability of resources differs greatly from one country to another. We know Nigeria has less than 3/4 of the land area of Peru, but more than 10 times the arable land and 6 times the population. This suggests that Nigeria has more human capital and land that can be farmed than Peru does. Oh, okay. Specialization in trade, unequal distribution of resources creates a need for specialization. When nations specialize in certain goods, they obtain the goods they do not or cannot produce through importing and exporting. Remember, an export is a good or service sent to another country. An import is something brought in. For example, Costa Rica specializes in growing and exporting coffee. The nation uses its money earned from selling coffee to import goods that it does not produce. In some cases, more than 70% of a nation's export trade depends on a single resources. Some examples include Kuwait, petroleum and natural gas, Guinea-Bissau, cashews, and the Marshall Islands, fish. This is Barbados. This is showing sugarcane, Costa Rica with coffee. Okay, so we have the question for number 3 is how are the factors of production related to the need of specialization? Unequal distribution of resources creates that need for specializations. A nation's ability to exploit or use its physical resources is affected by culture and history. We know that resources differ greatly from one country to another. So they talked about Nigeria. So you export what you have, and then you take the money that you make from those exports and you import what you need, right? Okay, let me see. Not everything went through. Okay. Let me finish putting this into the chat. All right, so question number 3 is in the chat. Okay. Let's move on to comparative and absolute advantage. I think we're only going to be able to get through one, maybe. Suppose a nation enjoys an abundance of resources, including a rich natural environment, educated workforce, latest technologies. Technically, I mean, a nation could be self-sufficient, producing almost all of what it needs by itself. Why then would it choose to engage in foreign trade? Although self-sufficiency may sound appealing, it's actually better for countries to specialize in some products and trade for others. To see why, you need to look at 2 related concepts: absolute advantage and comparative advantage. A person or nation has an absolute advantage when it can produce more of a given product than any other person or nation using a given amount of resources. So a simple example can illustrate the idea of absolute advantage. Suppose 2 people, Jenny and Carlos, work at both making birdhouses and printed t-shirts. In 1 hour, Carlos can either print 6 t-shirts or make 2 birdhouses. Jenny can print 1 t-shirt or make 1 birdhouse per hour. In other words, Carlos is more productive than Jenny, and making both t-shirts and birdhouses. In economic terms, Carlos has an absolute advantage over Jenny in producing both goods. So this is Carlos and Jenny, right? Are you with me so far, I hope? All right, so the question we have, oh, okay. Let me move this down. Sorry, trying to get through. How many t-shirts can Carlos make in the time it takes Jenny to make 5 t-shirts? So it's yeah. She makes 1 to his 6, right? So if she makes 5, it would be 30, right? Good. Everybody get that? All right, so we have one last thing. Let's do question number 5. So it says, what is comparative advantage and how is it related to opportunity? Oh, we didn't get to that one. What is absolute advantage and how is it used to related to resource use? Let me put this in the chat. Although self-sufficiency may sound appealing, is actually better for countries to specialize in some products and trade for others. It talks about if you can produce more of a given product than any other person or nation using a given amount of resources. This can give advantages for pricing and help a nation or industry rise above others and create dependence, which helps the source economically. Okay. And that is it. We only have time to get through question number 4 today. We will finish the rest of module 9, lesson 6 tomorrow. So I had hoped to get through question number 7 today. Obviously I didn't. We will finish it up tomorrow and we'll do our review sheet for the quiz tomorrow as well. And that is all I've got for today, everybody. I will see you tomorrow morning. Bye, everyone.